Broad financial supports that helped millions of Canadians through the pandemic are set to end this weekend. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland confirmed the changes today, announcing that new targeted measures will be introduced instead. At a wide-ranging news conference, they also unveiled a plan that aims to make international travel easier for fully vaccinated Canadians. The CBC's David Cochran is with us in Ottawa. David, let's begin with the COVID benefits program. A big shift in pandemic spending hits this weekend. Big programs are set to end. New ones begin. Walk us through these changes. Yeah, Katie, the pandemic isn't yet over, but the era of big historic pandemic spending appears to be at an end. I mean, this weekend, October 23rd, the existing income and business support programs are going to end. So on Saturday, that means the end of the Canada Recovery Benefit, the wage subsidy, the rent subsidy. And on Sunday, the birth of the Tourism and Hospitality Recovery Program, which offers wage and rent subsidies of up to 75% to businesses in those sectors who lose at least 40% of their income. And then another program called the Hardest Hit Business Recovery Program, which will offer wage and rent subsidies of up to 50% for other businesses who lose at least 50% of their income. And Chrystia Freeland calls this a pivot, what she hopes is the final pivot and the last big expensive financial aid package that they will need to deal with COVID. Here's what the Deputy Prime Minister said today.
We estimate the total cost of these measures from October 24th through to May 7th of next year will be $7.4 billion. That compares to the $289 billion we have spent on income and business supports since the start of the pandemic.
So you can see there and what they're trying to do is, as you played off the top, they want it to be narrower, more focused, and less expensive. The argument being that with vaccines widely available and lockdowns largely over, the time now is to start weaning the economy and weaning the country off the big national programs and replace them with a more targeted, more focused, and less expensive suite of supports that target the sectors that are still the most negatively affected. So what is the reaction to all of these changes? Yeah, there's been a mix of things coming in, and the small business community is a little bit worried about this. We spoke with Dan Kelly from the Canadian Federation of Independent Businesses, and he's largely saying that some of the subsidy levels are too low and the bar to get there is too high. Take the restaurant, the Tourism and Hospitality Recovery Program. You need to lose at least 40% of your revenue. Well, if you're a restaurant and losing 35% of your revenue, you're losing money every day, you don't qualify for any kind of support. And then the supports are, you don't get the maximum subsidy right away. So if you're one of the businesses outside of those sectors that qualifies for the Hardest Hit Business Recovery Program, if you lose half of your revenue, you get a subsidy of just 10%. So the concern there is that that's not going to be enough to get people through the indoor season, the winter season necessarily, and a lot of small businesses may not come back. And then there's the end of the CERB, this Canada Recovery Benefit. The business community is largely okay with this, so is the Bloc Québécois, and so are the Conservatives, because they believe that this has been an impediment to getting people to come back to work. The New Democrats say it's just ending immediately and there's not enough of a transition program there. What is there is a CERB equivalent program that workers can get if they're put in a government-imposed lockdown. So if you have a big outbreak here in Ottawa, for example, and the economy is shut down, you would qualify for these programs, but it's not national anymore. It doesn't qualify for everyone else. Criticism from the New Democrats that this is too much too soon without enough of a transition period or a notice period. So the Prime Minister made news on a couple of other issues at this news conference. It was really wide-ranging about vaccine passports and vaccines for kids. What happened on those two fronts? Okay, vaccine passports, talk about that first. What he announced today is that there's an agreement with the provincial and territorial governments to create provincially issued vaccine certificates that have a Government of Canada wordmark on it, which will qualify as an international vaccine passport. So this is standardized proof of vaccination for international travel. Now, every province has agreed to get into compliance with this, he says. Not everyone is there just yet. Some, like BC and Manitoba, have issued their own physical hard cards that they use with QR codes on it. They want to now move towards a PDF or a printed document with the QR code and the Government of Canada logo on it. And the Prime Minister needs to work with international countries to advocate for this to be accepted. So that is the plan that is in process. The second is an update on pediatric vaccines for kids between the ages of 5 and 11, under the age of 12. That is, Pfizer has a candidate for that. It's in the regulatory process with Health Canada. That's an independent process. That's got to be done. But the Prime Minister announced today that Canada will get 2.9 million doses of the Pfizer vaccine for kids. very soon after it is approved by Health Canada. So Pfizer is ready to ship to Canada the minute Health Canada gets it approved. So maybe within a week or so after that, because you got to remember too, Katie, the U.S. is ahead of us in the regulatory process here. They are going to want first dibs on any vaccines manufactured in their country, but Canada is near the front of the line on this with an assurance from Pfizer that the vaccine doses will come quickly after the vaccine itself is approved.
David Cochran, thank you very much for your time today.
You got it. Thanks, Katie.
For more on this, we are joined by Carla Qualtrough, the Minister of Employment. She's in Delta, British Columbia. Thank you for speaking with us today, Minister Qualtrough. I want to start by asking you, what makes your government so sure that now is the right time to transition from broad benefits to targeted benefits?
Well, thanks, Katie, and thanks for having me. So we really think that the CERB and the recovery benefits did what they were supposed to do. So they were intended, designed last September to address the economic and public health realities of September 2020. And we think now that the public health and economic circumstances of today are quite different. And so we think it is an appropriate time to transition away from these broader measures to more targeted support and to more kind of regional lockdown support for businesses and workers.
Now, we are heading into winter, cold and flu season, and there are still significant challenges in Saskatchewan, Alberta, and the Northwest Territories. Will you be open to reintroducing broad measures if needed in the future?
We always have been, and of course we would be. The point of this pivot is to reflect how things are today, and the point of creating what is basically, as the Deputy Prime Minister said today, an assurance policy of the Canada Worker Lockdown Benefit. So if, for example, a province went into lockdown, they would workers could immediately access this benefit, which would be like a broad support, like the broad supports were, but it will just be for that region.
Now, on the flip side of this argument, have these benefits been in place, the broad ones, too long? And is it contributing to the labor shortage that is causing significant challenges in this country?
Certainly, we've heard from businesses that both the CERB and the recovery benefits has exacerbated these kind of pre-existing labor shortages that were there before the pandemic. I'm personally of the opinion that the labor market data shows that certainly for the first 12 to 16 months of the pandemic, people took jobs when they were available. So I think it's time now to transition with our job numbers where they are, with the job vacancy numbers where they are, with the unemployment rate where it is. It is time to move to more tailored supports, but we're not through this yet.
Employers in a wide range of sectors are starting to lay off employees for refusing to get vaccinated. Will individuals who lose a job for refusing to get vaccinated qualify for employment insurance? That's a very important question, and we're looking into it. My current thinking on it is that's a choice, and of course, not counting medical exemptions or valid reasons for not having the vaccination. But if you choose to leave your job for that reason, my current thinking and the current advice I'm getting is you won't qualify for EI. So right now, it's not necessarily the employer is choosing. They're choosing not to get vaccinated, and we're not talking about medical reasons. That is not what I'm asking about. It's someone who says, I don't want to get vaccinated, even if I'm going to lose my job, that the employer terminates that person's positions. From your perspective right now, you're looking at making sure, no, that individual does not qualify for EI.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I understood your question. Absolutely. So it's a condition of employment that hasn't been met, and the employer choosing to terminate someone for that reason would make that person ineligible for EI.
And I know you said that you're looking at it right now. Is there any sort of timeline as to when that will be sort of specifically hammered out and be policy?
Partially because we're still technically in the caretaker convention and there hasn't been a new cabinet appointed, Katie. We don't want to make public policy firm decisions that will bind the next, cabinet. But I can tell you that's the advice I'm getting, and that will be the advice I move forward with. But we'll have to wait and see what the Prime Minister does next Tuesday with his cabinet.
And so once cabinet is picked, this is something that you will have to deal with.
Absolutely.
That will be dealt with then. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh said yesterday that he wanted to see the broad supports extended into November. Are you worried that this decision will undermine your party's ability to work with the NDP in a minority government? Yeah, I heard what Mr. Singh said, and I respect that perspective. But I'm of the very strong opinion that we aren't leaving people high and dry here. That although we're trying to balance the recognition that the economic circumstances has changed with ongoing support for highly impacted sectors, for workers who face lockdown and cannot go to work, but also there's lots of jobs out there. And so I'm hoping that the NDP will see that we think we've got this balance right. We've been able to work with them on various files, and I've been able to work very constructively with my colleagues from the NDP over the past 18 months to deliver for Canadians, and that's the spirit that I'm going into this with. But again, we are very committed. We are continuing to support workers and businesses, just in a more targeted way.
Your government also announced today a standardized proof-of-vaccination system for international travelers. What assurances do you have from other governments around the world that Canada's vaccine passports will be accepted?
Well, part of creating the standardized document is to add validity around the world so that other countries and governments can have confidence that this is a legitimate Canadian valid document. And so we're working with countries around the world. Certainly, I'm sorry, I don't have a list of those countries, but I've been assured, and I know that my colleagues are working hard to make sure, like our passport system, like other Canadian documents, that this document will be recognized. Having the smart health card standard applied across the country is a really helpful start. And everybody around the world has a vested interest in making this work. And I think that's the spirit we're going into this with.
But right now, there are no specific countries that the Canadian government has either spoken with or had conversations with that says, you know what, we like your system, come on in, Canadian travelers, show this passport, we'd welcome you in here.
I'm sorry, Kate, I don't have the specific list, but I know those conversations are ongoing.
Now, the vaccine passport for travel is another sign that we are transitioning out of some of the worst stretches of the pandemic. When is your government going to tell Canadians that, again, it is safe to travel?
Really important conversations are happening both on that front and, of course, on the PCR requirement for a test front. But no changes have been made, nor is that anticipated in the immediate future. But certainly, we understand that those will be the next steps for Canadians as we all go back out into the world.
Minister Qualtrough, I want to thank you for your time today.
My pleasure. Take care.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.